welcome to TIA Talks. My name is Jason, your host, and today with me I've got Mandi and Asiya. Welcome, guys. It's so exciting to have you here, Flip.
Thanks, Jason. It's such a privilege, and I get to sit next to Mandi.
Yeah. Well, Asiya, on that note, I mean, for those of the listeners at home that don't know, you are probably the biggest fan of TIA.
Self-appointed TIA superfan.
I
will fight for that title.
I don't think it's self-appointed because the people behind the scenes, they look at the comments and they look at the insights and all sorts of things.
The social media interaction.
And I'm pretty sure.
I'm one step away from stalker.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I think it's safe to say that you are the super fan. And I'm sure many of the listeners today are also fans of the show itself, the Insurance Apprentice. And I wanted to actually, before we even get into the show and your journey, Mandi, Asiya, I wanted to find out what you do, and I know that you're in the insurance industry itself, which is quite cool having you watch us and you know us, and it's always nice having a fan, on the show.
People cheering from you from the back. That's so beautiful.
For sure. Thanks, Jason. So I'm Asiya, as you mentioned, and I'm currently the GM at Fulcrum. That is the GM of sales and new business development in collections. So we deal with premium handling as well as premium finance. But I do have an insurance background, and I think that's where the fandom came from. People would often say that once you enter insurance, it never leaves you.
True.
And I think I was one of those people because I started at a time where it was old school traditional insurance. You tend to get really passionate about it. So when TIA kicked off, I started living vicariously through everyone, and I was literally hooked from season one. I think every time I saw Rianette at an event, I just wanted to go and grab her and, ask her about what's coming up next.
Yeah.
And becoming really invested with I wanted to almost say characters, but with the candidates.
Yeah.
So I think, that's
a good way to define us. It's not characters, it's candidates. I'm more interested to see how the next season is going to go on TV because
I'm actually interested to find out, did you ever consider entering?
Well, Mandi, the sad truth is I just didn't make the under 35. We shall leave it as that it's just.
Fair enough.
But I mean, that was the deterrent. So you can understand why I was so invested.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, this came like 10 years too late, for someone like me or other people.
So
like
did you
me.
just decide not to enter last year then?
Wow, well done. Give the man a coffee.
So what exactly do you do at Fulcrum? Because I know that, on the podcast, we've had so many different businesses and different people like in different businesses and professions in the industry itself. And I know some people don't really know what Fulcrum would do as a collection agent.
Yeah.
So maybe you can just give us some insight to that.
Sure. So I think a lot of people don't fully understand, even often people we talk to at insurers don't fully understand how premium handling works. I think the short answer would be we're almost like a treasury for insurers and brokers. We collect premiums, so everyone's premiums, and then we, based on instruction from the broker insurer, we disperse those premiums. That's the short answer. We also have a premium finance division that is separate to us, but still under the Fulcrum banner. But in terms of collections, new sales and business development, it's maintaining existing clientele. New sales is looking for new brokers and insurers that will partner with us so that we can debit their clients and manage the admin aspects of that premium handling functionality.
Does it create like a layer of safety almost around the funds?
So yeah, definitely. So the premium that's collected, it's been de-risked because it goes directly into the insurer bank accounts. That is a format called Collect Direct. So it is years ago, agencies such as Fulcrum would have their own bank account into which monies were collected into. It was literally based on trust.
Was that because that we needed like an IGF then or something for that?
Yes, and then that fell away.
Yeah.
But there are other things that happened with various other companies that led to it being re-legislated as such. And the new model, as directed by the financial sector, FSCA, where we now open bank accounts for various insurers, and then those premiums are collected directly into those bank accounts. So we are still responsible for the disbursement of those monies and the admin around it and customizing reports and dealing with clients on a daily basis. So we handle all of that, except the monies have been de-risked because they sit in insurer bank accounts.
Sure. So without getting too technical, there's premium, it gets collected, and you guys do that.
Yes.
There we go.
So we have authority to debit your policyholder. So as a broker, the agreement between you and I, it gives us permission to debit your policyholders directly.
No wonder I sign all those extra forms. Okay, now that makes sense. But on a serious note, though, we know about premiums and we know that there's disbursements you mentioned. Those disbursements are obviously commissions and all sorts of different things that have
Correct.
to kick
Fees,
out of.
commissions,
Okay, because premiums
to
are made
suppliers.
up of like a whole bunch of different stuff.
But you remember the pure premium, the portion that goes to the insurer cannot be touched.
Yeah.
And that is why you need a third party to manage that. So the pure premium is untouched.
Because I know that brokers were handling that premium, and that was that was a problem.
Yeah,
you know,
it was.
Okay.
They were not authorized to do that.
Yeah. So the FSCA did something great. So thank you, FSCA. I actually do like red tape. So I do think that compliance and all of that stuff and all these initiatives that they're bringing in is actually brilliant. I did miss the last episode of my season when it was the FSCA task.
You missed it. That's what happened.
I will mention that every single time. Monday, you beat me.
I know. I know. I know.
I want to say it was close. But I don't know.
As a consolation.
Listen, it was close in every episode. Ask me.
Okay,
No,
good.
I
True.
never missed a beat. I think it's like you would be following someone and you're fully invested in someone, and then the next week someone else just comes right out of the wings, and shocks you. So I think that's the other thing that made it so exciting.
Monday didn't do that. Monday was so consistent.
Consistently under the radar.
Yes, you were under the radar, but you need to score points, and you
True,
need to score
true.
points every episode and every task, and you did that consistently.
Yeah.
No one wanted to vote you out for anything.
Yeah.
No one really hated you on the show.
Yeah.
Maybe bar one or two. I don't know.
I
We
think
won't-
some people
we
did
won't
want to vote
mention
me out,
it.
but yes.
But before we go into that, Mandy, you don't collect premiums. You create them.
Yeah.
You kind of I like creating
Generates them.
no, I like creating premium, you underwriting risk.
Sure.
So tell us a bit about what you do in the industry, because you're not just an underwriter.
No, true.
There's-
No, true.
Yeah.
So I'm a corporate property underwriter. So what we basically do is that we look at corporate risk. If you look at insurance, especially the business aspect of it, you've got commercial, you've got mid-corp, and you've got corporate. So the distinction between those is just based on their sums insured. For example, you'll say commercial is anything from 0 to 250. You'd say the mid-corp.
Million.
Yes, million.
Yeah, million.
Right?
Just for anyone that's like, 250,000 rand, I'll insure my house contents with Mandy. No, you won't.
No. And then you've got what's basically the mid-corp market. Depending on that particular underwriter, they'll usually say between 250 and maybe 500. But for us at Emerald, when we look at corporate risk, we look at risk that have a minimum sum insured for the target location that's at least 650 million.
Okay.
So that's where we start to look at our business. And what we mainly do is that we do property. Right, so your property business will mainly be your assets or risk, which is mainly property damage and business interruption. Okay. So we provide that cover. So how generally the process, how it flows is that you've got your insured in the front, which is a big corporate or big entity that has, a total asset value within the billions. And you'll find, their top location is well above 650.
You don't do referrals, eh?
No.
Okay. I'm just making sure.
No. So what will generally happen in that particular case is that they'll obviously go to a broker like yourself and say they're seeking insurance. And that particular direct broker will come to us, the corporate underwriter, providing us with all the requisite information. We'll obviously review. We'll have discussions in terms of what policy covers that they require, what extensions, what deductibles to look at. And then we'll do a rating from that perspective and create a premium so that we can give them the cover that they require. So that's one end of the business that we do at Wessing at Emerald. We also do what's called facultative inwards. Right, so that's the reinsurance aspect of the business. So I know a lot of people.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything towards this topic.
No. But reinsurance, just to explain it quite simply for people who are not aware of that, area of the business, is basically insurance for insurance companies. Right? So that's simply just it. So we also do what's called facultative reinsurance, which is basically insurance on a per risk basis. So we basically follow the same processes as I just explained now on the direct end. We just do it from the reinsurance aspect, and we just become a reinsurance market. So that's basically, it's quite technical, right, when you get to the corporate space, because there's a lot to actually go into and to consider before you're able to provide a rate and or premium, before you're able to provide that particular cover. And there's a lot of covers that actually go into, because you can imagine these are big entities with all sorts of different sort of assets that they need covered, and all different sorts of perils that they need to be considered.
It's a complex risk.
Very complex.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Been in the industry for almost a decade now, right? Prior I was in reinsurance. So it's quite an exciting area of the business that people are not too privy to or not too exposed to.
Yeah. And not many brokers do it either, which is quite interesting, because you can only have a handful of those clients at one time anyway, because you are servicing everyone and their mother through that, so
fair
it becomes a lot of work, so.
Fair enough. I was going to say, look, what we also have to consider is that there's not a lot of business that meet those minimum thresholds. I mean, if I'm saying a business, their top location, or at least one of their location has to be 650 million in value and up, that's quite a big ask when you look at the economic landscape of South Africa.
So the market segment's small.
Exactly, right? And there's only, a few players in the market that deal within that space, that have, the necessary expertise, and you have obviously, a limited number of underwriters or capacity,
and you've
markets.
Got to spread that risk
exactly.
with those numbers as well.
Exactly, right.
So, Mans, what did you study to do this, or did you just fall into it like everyone freaking else?
Look, I've always never liked the expression of falling into insurance. It always makes it seem as if it's something of last resort, and that wasn't necessarily the case for me. Yes, I didn't go to school wanting to be, in insurance or in underwrite, but I'm quite happy to be in this industry. So what I studied was a BCom economics and statistics, right?
Okay.
With a
I did the same.
Is it?
Dude,
lovely stuff.
I didn't go to many lectures, but I mean,
you did it.
Yeah, I did it.
That was the idea.
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
No. So you don't have to study a particular degree and or qualification.
Okay.
What's important for you is that if you have interest in getting into this particular space, is that you find who the players are in this particular market. Then you obviously try and get into the graduate programs. What they generally want as a requirement is a commerce degree.
Okay.
Right. And then everything else you basically learn what's saying from your work. So it's not a situation where if you do this particular, qualification, you'll have, an advantage. Obviously, there are people who do insurance-based qualifications, including
what I did through Molpark. So, like you said, Mandy, correctly so, it's good to come in with some sort of undergrad, and then you refine your knowledge, because there are lots of business schools that offer specific insurance qualifications, because you do need to know those financial legislations and product and all of it.
And even if you don't, there is obviously post-grad qualifications that you can still do. Remember, it's not enough for you to have an undergrad, qualification. Once you start working, you need all of those, insurance-based qualifications. They help you with your knowledge. They help you with your understanding in the industry. I mean, we come from a history as far as the industry is concerned where it wasn't as technical, right? There wasn't as many, requirements when it came to qualifications and or education.
Now
that's changed, right? The sort of risk that we look into require that level of understanding, even at a basic working level. So to say you'd be coming from matric and, try and do what we do day to day, even from a learning perspective, would be a daunting task. Not that it's not achievable, but it's more advisable. Go to school, get your, your qualifications, then after, target those particular markets.
Yeah, because I do think that in the insurance industry specifically, like with the likes of Insita, a lot of the companies that you work for tend to make you into an insurance kind of candidate. We come from varsity, we finish our BComs, and we can go to an insurance company. There are jobs that just take your BCom and, normal, but then there's like underwriting and risk and all sorts of stuff that goes into it. And then I think you start to, get the companies to support you and they grow you. So you say it's daunting. It is a very daunting task if you do get, if you don't have any support. But I think the guys in the insurance industry are really making ways for that to happen.
I just want to say, for anyone listening, like matriculants or really young people, we don't want to deter them as well, because these days, rightly so, there are lots of standalone programs. So you don't need to go the university route and
And
get
you're
some
part of
sort
some of
degree.
those.
True.
Yeah. So with IIG Insurance Institute of Gauteng, there's a lot of educational programs there that are linked to people like Insita, and you can actually fast track your learning process into insurance. Nothing will ever replace in-house training and, on the job training.
True.
But having those qualifications certainly will get you a foot in the door. So you could literally, come in as an intern, or, there are lots of brokerages who are willing to employ young people, provided they take on one of these programs. And a lot of times these companies will pay for it, including big insurers as well. So not to deter any young people
absolutely true.
that are
Look,
listening.
the most amount of experience you'll ever get, and I'm speaking to this particular industry, will be on the job training. Right? There's nothing that compares to it. There's no, qualification that will make you smarter than others simply because you did that.
Well, that's why I think all of these guys that are retiring and leaving the insurance industry
There's a
are all
huge
contracting in now. Because we've mentioned the skills gap on the show before and all sorts of things, but you really do need the experience because risk does change. And I honestly think that the longer I am a broker, the better I'm getting, purely because I see different claims every day. And now, the 1 year that I was doing this, there was a arrow through a cell phone, like a bow and arrow, like an arrow shot right through a cell phone. And it was right through the middle of an iPhone. And the guy was claiming for it and it was covered,
wow.
Yeah.
And I just thought, firstly, how did this happen?
For sure.
Secondly, is it fraud? And thirdly, but we do see
damage.
different things. And I know that's a silly thing, but insurance is constantly evolving.
But you touched on something that's actually a very important point in terms of the knowledge transfer with people exiting the industry. And I think that we need to get a hold of that knowledge a lot sooner. People are leaving it almost until the year that people are exiting, and there are huge gaps. So when you think about things like succession planning, there can be a little bit of a panic around that because when you get to the end, people are ready to just leave. And there's just not enough time to transfer that knowledge.
Yeah,
So
we see that in our space. Brokers tend to not retire, or they tend to, try and get the succession planning done right at the end when they want to retire, and they haven't really trained anyone up. So I'm seeing a lot of brokers do it now.
But I think I recently saw something, it may have been on LinkedIn, where Asiya has started off this program, like some sort of retiree mentorship, which I thought was brilliant because, that's exactly what we need. So if they've initiated this program, I think that'll be an amazing platform
And I
to
think
get
this-
onto.
Yeah, no, I was about to say, I think the skills gap exists throughout the entire industry, industry insurance, both in broking, in underwriting, or you're
everywhere.
doing commercial and or corporate. And that's an issue that we face day to day. Because you have situations where people are trying to fill positions and or spaces, especially in a country where we have so much, unemployment, and they're unable to do so simply because of, not there being that
Lack
particular
of
skills.
exposure,
Exactly. And what you have to consider is that if you take someone who's inexperienced, you also have to go through the effort of training them.
And
which
time
takes
and
a quite-
investment
Exactly.
of that person.
You know.
And it doesn't always work out.
Exactly.
So it's a bit of a risk for us that manage
sure.
risk
No,
to
no.
take on the risk.
No,
What, to train or not to train?
Well, that's the decision. Firstly, do you train this person or not?
No,
Are they the right person?
I think I think I'm going to botch it, but I read a quote by Richard Branson about when you train your staff and they leave, and he said something like, imagine if you don't and they stay. So it's much better said, but that's the idea behind it. I think either way, it's inevitable.
No, that's beautiful. I was going to say, the concern that employers generally have in terms of training staff and them leaving and them having to train again. I think rather than taking that approach, let's take an approach where everyone who comes in needs to be trained, and that for the entirety of the existence of your business, you'll constantly have to train employees. Not necessarily for them to be able to do the job, but to continue to do the job well. Or just generally to have everyone within the team be in the same level in terms of exactly. Right.
Even if you don't use them, that person is empowered to do it somewhere else.
Exactly.
So there's a part of training that's actually just I want to say ethical, but
Yes.
it's,
No,
you know,
that's exactly it.
You're giving
that's
back,
exactly,
right,
to the
community.
That's exactly it. So we need to move away from that idea that I'm simply training my staff so that they can continue to do, the work where I employ them. And you simply just look at it from the perspective that this is my duty as an employer. When you hire someone from elsewhere, they've been trained by someone else. So how can you have that perspective that how can I train someone else to go elsewhere?
That's
and offer
actually
you,
a very good point.
and often you get them on the cheap.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's so wrong. I think obviously money talks, and it's a cost to train people and all of these things. But I do think that there are other ways that you can use, like in CETA and all of those things, where it actually doesn't really cost
And
anything.
Moonstone,
And Moonstone, and there's so many initiatives out there that just assist with all of this. But anyway, how's the coffee? Are you enjoying it?
Coffee is good.
Okay, that's good. The insurance industry is changing fast. The way we work, the risks we face, and clients' expectations are evolving every single day. That's where Sapiens comes in. They're building cutting-edge technology that helps insurers stay ahead, streamlining processes, reducing inefficiencies, and making the entire experience smarter. If you're in the industry, this is the tech you need to know about. Learn more at sapiens.com. Asiya, speaking of, organizations that support youngsters, in the industry, or interns that want to just grow in the industry and build a career, you are part of Roots and Wings.
So I was, Jason, for many years. So I used to be both a council member and I was once an ambassador with the Insurance Institute of Gauteng. That's the IIG.
Okay.
And I was in the education portfolio. And education is something very close to my heart. I'm very passionate about. It's something that you feel strongly about, but it's about creating a platform for the next generation. So when the Roots and Wings mentorship program came about, I knew I had to throw my hat in there. And I did it under the Roots and Wings program for about 5 years.
Sure.
So it was amazing. It's still going on. They've now expanded into Roots and Wings International. So they've gone into Africa. Wow. So they still have the localized program, but now they've also opened it up to Africa. And I think slowly they'll look at, the success of this and how it translates into something in the future. But in terms of international, this would be the second year of doing international. It's been going quite well.
Sorry, Mandy. I just want to do, what is Roots and Wings? Because I think some people don't really know what the organization stands for.
So the idea behind it, it's to encourage people. So it's more a program designed for the mentees to use it to their advantage, right? The mentors are literally people from the industry who are volunteering their time to be a part of this.
Were you a volunteer for 5 years?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Sure.
So the mentees ideally get sponsored by their companies. It's a minimal cost. And the idea is to get mentees on board and then to match them up to mentors. So they literally have a welcome event that we've started loosely calling speed dating, because that's exactly what it's like. You literally have to work the room. And the idea is I always tell mentees to ensure that they talk to everyone, because I wouldn't know what Jason has to offer if I don't have a chat with him, or Mandy for that matter. If I just get stuck with Asiya, I'm going to be doing myself a disservice, right? So,
because it has to be the right fit.
It has to be the right fit. But the interesting thing is, so they've been facilitated by Jenna Kutsia and Associates, who've been doing a sterling job facilitating this entire program. And the ladies, they are so good that they can literally match people to like 100%. And when they first do, when you are announced who you're paired with, you're like, really? No, I don't think so. I'm not sure. And then into the journey, you realize, man, this is exactly what I needed.
Do they match you with technology, or like how do they use it?
So there isn't really a cookie cutter formula as such, right? So the idea is when these mentees, are walking around and having their chats, they also do have a session with the facilitator that's just for the mentees. And you are meant to kind of like disclose why you're part of the program. So some people are looking for specific career growth in a certain direction.
Okay.
And sometimes they do want to specialize. Maybe someone wants to specialize in reinsurance or, get into aviation or marine for that matter. And maybe in their current role, they're not quite there. So if there is a similar type of mentor, that would be an excellent pairing. Or if there's a mentor who can get you there, who can give you the steps that you need to take in order to get to where you want to be. But sometimes, mentees also have a few personal goals, and it could be something as light as, I want to lose weight, and you sometimes need a mentor
to help you
who
do
can
that.
help you get
100%.
there. Sometimes people...
I need a mentor for that.
I don't think
Don't
so.
we all?
It's March now, March 2025. December, I said to everyone that I'd be ripped in March. So I'll tell you in May what I look like. Okay, we'll give
So
it
you
a few
have a
more
mentor
months.
for that.
Yeah,
Because I was going to recommend for you, although I don't think you need.
I'm going to need more than a
I think you
mentor,
look-
I can tell you that.
You look fine.
I was going to comment to see that's Jenna, right? Jenna
Yes,
and Linda.
Jenna and Linda Kutsia.
Jenna and Linda are incredible people, by the way. I've had
Shout out.
the opportunity. Yeah, shout out to Jenna and Linda. I've had the opportunity to be in one of their programs, and what they're able to achieve in terms of taking you from where you currently are to where you want to get is just an incredible feat.
Yeah.
Right? Just one educating you not only about, let's say, for example, leadership, but also about yourself, your personality, where you can improve, what areas require more focus. How they've been able to do that for, for
They've
as long
got
as
an
I've known
amazing
them.
skill set,
No,
wouldn't
they
you
do.
say? The
No,
way
they do.
they suss out someone in just a few minutes. That's why the pairing is so crucial, and the fact that they get it right. They often say, just trust the journey and trust the process. You might not see it in that first pairing,
Sure.
but as you go on that journey, they're
They're
amazing.
incredible.
And you were
people.
part of that program with them?
Yeah,
Or?
I was part of the program within our company because
Okay.
they run a program within Western Emerald as well. So it was mainly a leadership class. So what they do at the start of the year is that they look at people's personality. So they'll have you fill in a form, answer and tick particular questions
Yeah.
so they can identify what sort of personality you are.
Take
how
a blood
you-
sample.
All of
If only it
that.
was that easy.
Oh, you are ENTJ.
But it's also interesting at the beginning, you might think you want a certain thing and how that changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, also depending on the mentor, sometimes it also defines what your career looks like. I mean, if my mentors were, mine were great, or are great, I should say. And I've just seen that a bad mentor can really make you want to leave the industry as well.
Oh, true.
And then we lose some amazing talent. So it's also a thing of mentors need to actually really step up and be good mentors and really take the time to invest in these people.
I need to mention, Jason, your mentor doesn't necessarily have to be part of a formalized program.
Yeah.
Sometimes your mentors can be in the company
Yes.
that you work. It can be peripheral. In the industry, you probably admire someone and you could seek some sort of, I'm going to call it informal mentorship, not because of there's any difference in quality, but because it's not part of a formalized program.
Yeah.
When I got into insurance, there were no programs, so I think about the people that mentored me along the way, and I've never forgotten them. I mean, some of these little nuggets remain with you forever. Recently, I got a 20-year lifetime award through the IIG, and I had to give a shout out to my original
No wonder you can't
mentor.
enter TIA.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's it. Now you know. The cat's out of the bag. But
What were you doing 2 years ago, Jason?
it's so crucial, because you're right. They literally shape the trajectory of your career path, your life path. So it's
It's absolutely important, I think, for people to, focus on getting a mentor. Because what generally happens is that you end up having to navigate the industry yourself. Not only navigating corporate, but to just, have to sit and do a lot of introspection most of the time. Whereas if you have mentorship, then it provides some level of guidance. Someone who's gone through similar, experiences where you don't have to go through the same in order to reach the same milestones and or particular goals. So they can, assist you and or help you. Not necessarily even the best of time make your journey a lot smoother, but certainly not as hard and or difficult as theirs. And also obviously the other element is they get to impart knowledge on you.
Great. So Mandi, would you agree that, because I firmly believe in this, I do believe the mentor, there needs to be a certain level of maturity, right? You need to have lived life to have had those experiences. So I'm a little bit traditional in that way. I don't want to say anything controversial, but you know, I would worry about a 25-year-old
from a single person. So I think it's a similar thing, you know. If you're not
if your
living
mentor
the
is
experience,
25 years old, I mean, they may have technical knowledge, but on the life skills that comes with time, right?
Yeah.
So
Just for them to be able to, you know, say to you what's important, what's not important. And the element of having lived, whatever that means for you, having had, you know, experience in different areas, not only of the market, but just in life in general.
Yeah.
Because in some situations, your mentor is not there to simply tell you that you should move to this particular company or you should do this particular qualification, but to say how you navigate this difficulty or this part of your life.
Yeah.
And how you conduct yourself.
Exactly.
It's almost like
and
a
you
coach.
require some and you require someone who obviously has that sort of life experience and that level of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. I think
But
Mandy,
Jason, can I just say, you said coach, and I think I often find this comes up quite a bit. So if I can just say, there is a distinct difference between a coach and a mentorship. So, you know, although both are there to support you and guide you through personal and career development, a coach concentrates on specific short-term goals, whereas a mentor is there for the long journey. So I think we need to know the difference, because there are a lot of coaches out there as well. And if you're wanting a mentor to guide you through a journey, you might not find the right fit.
Yeah, no, that's a great distinction to make. Mandy, I wanted to chat to you a little bit about the show, because you mentioned introspection around mentorship and stuff. I want to know from you, how has TIA actually shaped future leaders in terms of, because I don't think it's mentorship necessarily what TIA does, but I know that it supports the initiative of growing future leaders and shaping them. Because I saw, as a contestant, now I feel like I'm a little bit, like I'm a self-aware individual. So in the show, I could just tell I'm gonna have a hard time beating everybody here, you know. And I saw you on the first day, and I thought, I'm gonna beat this guy.
Is that so?
I'm gonna beat this guy. Then you told me about facultative reinsurance, and I was like, I don't know what that is. And then we got to a point. Then I started to worry, and then we got to that point where there was an episode where we had this, it was Rain and myself and Keba were in a group, and we had to work out the rates, and there was calculations, and you took on that task for your team, and Rain did it for me, and you handled yourself like a boss. I don't know how else to kind of explain it, but it was so behind the scenes. I mean, everyone was stressed about that, and we never expected you to step up into that moment and take your team through to the next round, you know. And I think what you did in that episode just showed what you were standing on throughout the process. You know, you were holding on to this like big moment. And I think that was one of them. You know, I still haven't watched the last episode, so I don't know if you know, I don't know if you had a big moment there.
No. Look, I think for me, you know, not even talking specifically about introspection, but just the overall journey, I think in the TIA has just been, you know, a journey of discovery for me. I don't know if I've told this story before, but how I got to enter the show was through people identifying my talents, identifying my ability to do well in the show, and simply saying to me, we think you'd be great for this show. Wow. So prior to, I'd never watched the show. And I generally never had an interest in the show because I don't watch that many reality
You could tell when you got there. When Mandy got there, I just have to say, when Mandy got to the show, he arrived and he was like, wait, what do we do now? Like, wait, is this what we do?
How dare you sit next to me?
No. Look, I'm being absolutely honest. I had never watched a single episode.
Well, maybe since you're going in as a contestant, that's kind of a good thing, right? So there's no preconceived ideas in terms of game plans and strategies. So maybe it was a good thing.
No, look, it was, you know, to my benefit, I think also. So how that ended up working out is that, you know, 3 people within the company, I'll shout them out, Chris Porter, Carla, Jordan, and Hans. So Chris was the first person to come to me. Chris was a judge once upon a time on the show, right, some time back.
Nepotism.
No, if only.
I'm going to speak to some of the guys behind the scenes.
No, but, you know, I was sitting at my desk, and the communique had come in.
Chris was also a mentor.
So the communique had come through that the applications for the TIA were open. Again, I just passed it. Right?
You would. You're waiting for the wine list.
Exactly. Call me then.
Yeah.
So Chris walks over to me and says, Mandy, how old are you? Right? And I say, no, I'm 32. He says, I'll be right back. Comes back to me. He says, do you know the show TI? I'm like, I've heard about it. Like, have you ever watched it? I'm like, no. He's like, I think you'd be great for it. I'm like, I don't know. Right?
Before it goes on TV. I think you'll be great for it before it goes on TV.
And he basically is selling the entire show to me. I said, listen, let me think about it. A few days passed. Carla, at the time, was out of the country, so sent someone to come over and speak to me about it. I'm like, why are you guys so set on this show? Because, what's the big deal about it?
Yeah.
I don't understand. But I'll consider it because Chris spoke to me. Right. And then I had Hans the third time around come through and ask me the same thing. So I said, all right, cool. I'll put in my name. I'm putting in my name to satisfy those particular people, not because I have a genuine interest in the show. Right?
Because I remember, that's true, because I remember when they asked you, when we were going to do the behind the scenes like interviews and stuff, and they're like a little diary. And they're like, why did you enter the show? And there I am like, I want to make a difference. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then Mandy's like, I have no idea. I just like rocked up here and I heard there was a cash prize.
I kid you not. It's not too far-fetched, that part of the story.
Word.
I kid you not. So I go through what's the first stage. We were doing it at the Santon building. We get there. There's about, I think, 50 plus many people. The first red flag for me is that they say, describe
Red
yourself.
flag.
No, and I'll tell you why I said red flag, which is why I thought maybe this is not for me yet again. The first question, they say, describe yourself they asked us 3 questions and said, answer those 3 in 10 seconds. So I'm in the back row. So that's where they started. So I do exactly that. Poop, poop, poop.
Yeah.
Done. As it goes into the middle of the class, people are talking about here motivating their kids, doing something that's never been done
Someone
before.
said that they entered because they want to be a great example to their daughter. I was like, that's very cool.
Nothing
I'm
wrong
just
with
here
that.
to show that I'm a good broker. Like, that's all.
It was so amazing hearing people's stories.
It's
like,
cool, yeah.
Their
I'm not
life, a big part of their identity was attached to this particular show and how well they would do in the show.
And there's Mandy.
And there's me. It was just like, can we finish?
You actually weren't aware of the reach of this show?
No, I wasn't.
How vast
No,
it was?
I wasn't.
If I knew that we had a super fan.
No, I genuinely was. But fast forward that, I get picked. I'm the only one out of my team with the last to present. We go to the second stage. Again, we're going through, and I went and I spoke to Chris again. I said, people in that show are so animated. They have all these big personalities, and that's just not me. He says, don't worry. The judges will sit and they'll see through all of that and know how to judge accordingly. I said, okay, cool. We go to the second show. Again, team goes in. I'm the only one from the team. I'm like, maybe I'm not too bad.
Yeah.
I start to take it in a positive light. I said, okay, no, this is great. Then we start the 10-day thing. We were obviously, shooting for all of those weeks.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening there for me is that I took the fact that people had so much confidence in me to do well to say, take this seriously. Try and apply yourself. See how far you get. The worst thing that could possibly happen is that you get eliminated, but you've gotten this far.
The best thing is you could be sitting on TIA talks.
Exactly.
As
second runner-up.
As second runner-up. Exactly. Well, that's what I wanted to mention. You didn't just like shoot the lights out in the competition. You literally made it to the end. You did every task. You got to the end, and not many people. 10% of all contestants have actually, or 30% of all contestants have actually gotten to that stage. It's
on the
just,
first try, by the way.
Yeah.
On the first try.
Yeah.
I sort of get butterflies when I hear how many people have entered multiple times
I know,
and
right?
haven't been able to get, further than the first round. And, last week I was at an industry thing. This other guy approached me. He's like, Mandy, sort of thing. Great to finally meet you. You're one of the guys that have made us believe that even though you don't necessarily believe that in yourself, but you can get that far.
Yeah.
And I was actually, quite moved because I didn't know the guy and he introduced himself when it was this thing to me. And it was just a beautiful moment. And as you travel across the country, you get to see how many people watch the show, how many people love the
And
show.
you find that sense of responsibility
Yeah.
sits on your shoulders,
Yeah.
right? Even with you, Jason, I'm sure.
Yeah, I walked into Hollard the one time and we get to the elevator and the elevator's open. And it's myself and Rain. So hopefully they were talking to me too. But they get out the elevator and they're like, oh, we know you. And I said, no, you don't. They said, no, TIA. I said, do you want a photo? They said, no. So we're not that famous, but it's there.
No, it's beautiful. And I
Personal
mean,
brand.
across the country, right? I've been fortunate with my job to, go to some cities. And where once before I thought people knew me from my day job. When you walk in there and people are like, no, I know you. I'm like, from where? Like, no, the show. I'm like, oh, okay, here's some. And it's different age groups. Because you would think it's mainly younger people.
No.
That's not the case. It's people who've been in the industry for quite a very long time.
All my friends'
that
moms.
genuinely love the show.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful thing to watch. It actually creates, some elements of community.
Yeah.
Because once people get to see you on TV, they get to have this feeling that they know you. So it's easier for them to approach you. Now, when someone comes to me and says, hi, I know you, I now have to question from the show or from work?
Yeah. Are you in real life or are you just a fan?
And Jace, the funny thing is, it's like I don't work for TIA. If there was a real job, I would have applied for it. But I find that when you feel that sense of passion and you promote it, it's like an unpaid promotion. I mean, I had a client meeting this morning and I'm already telling the client, have you guys watched it? Get your staff to watch it and they should apply for the next round, because I often tell them, I think winning is kind of like the last thing.
Yeah.
Because the amount of exposure and the
Absolutely
life journey
true.
that you have is
Absolutely
unforgettable.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah.
You leave changed forever.
Absolutely
Right?
true.
So
What resonates the most with you from the show? I mean, as a fan and as a spectator, what do you look at?
So, like I said, from season one, right? I think it was the format of the show that was so gripping, great editing. But I think if you're passionate
Flash forward, shout
about the industry and the way in which, I love the fact that when contestants are given tasks, it's all real-time stuff that we experience in our real lives. That is why, was it season 8 or season 7 where
Mandy
they had
wouldn't
that
know. He didn't watch it.
I
He didn't
didn't
watch it.
the contestants are there thinking they're awaiting the task and someone runs in and saying there's a fire, and it really caught everyone off guard. So that made for a real sort of daytime TV show.
There is a real aspect to this reality show.
It's a real aspect, and also it gives people first-hand opportunity to actually put into application what you learned in theory, right? And I think also for everyone else watching, especially younger people, you see all the various different categories. And it also allows you to understand, okay, so this is how this works, and maybe I want to get into this. So this guy is representing this company and he sounds really cool. Maybe it's a great place to work at. But I think for me personally, it was just, the pure sense of being able to put into application all those insurance learnings.
Sure.
That's beautiful.
Asiya, I'm going to end with you, or I'm going to start with you in the end. As a super fan,
I'm still waiting for that badge.
do you know, you're getting a mug, so it's fine. Do you know how I end this chat every single time? Do you know, are you that much of a super fan, or do you not watch this podcast?
Just remember, TIA podcast has been recent.
Okay, good. Okay, so I end every episode with a question to my guests that just gets you maybe thinking about how you want to change the industry and what you're passionate about. I know, Mandi, that wasn't in your alley right in the beginning when you entered.
Sure.
But I know that just getting to know you through the competition and being your mate now, I think that I've seen that you are a brilliant competitor and a brilliant person. And I think that you do want to make a difference.
Thank you. You give compliments too.
So I do know that there is something there. But Asiya, I'm going to start with you. Is there a burden that you have for the industry that you want to kind of impact? I know you already are in many, many ways. But is there something that maybe the listeners out there can help you with, or if there is someone that...
So interestingly, Jason, I actually already started on this journey, because as you get older, you want to have a life that is a lot more meaningful, right? And for me, it's always been about giving back to the community, to uplifting younger people, and you can do that through mentorship and coaching. And for me, I often think about the Japanese concept of ikigai, of living, within your purpose. So first you need to identify it and then be able to use it and then recreate it. So for me, taking coaching really seriously. And I love the fact that people come up to me and always look for advice, whether I'm part of a program or not. And I'm
It shows
open,
the person you are.
Yeah, well, I'm open to the fact that even after this podcast, there'll probably be people reaching out to me, and I welcome that because it's about making life a little bit easier and better for the next person, right? Because we leave with nothing, so you might as well leave something of substance behind. And yeah,
Absolutely
me.
true.
Mans,
That's so beautiful.
can you top that?
No. I'm not even going to try. Look, Jace, I like the fact that you touched on my personality and everything of that sort when I first started on the show, because I don't think that was a goal for me. But I've seen the impact of something like TIA, and it would be, remiss of me to not take the opportunity to, one, try and bring up the next generation of people in a way that they can appreciate not only the industry, but also try and impart knowledge, skills, and expertise to those particular people. That's how I try and conduct my day-to-day. You don't have to be in a senior position to become a leader. You don't have to be in a senior position to hold someone by their hand and show him the way.
Or part of an organization.
Exactly. Right. You can do that day to day, which was something Asiya spoke to, previously. And that's where my passion is. Right. I've started, in a very small sort of, environment, which is the workplace, how I conduct myself day to day. If I know something and I'm aware that other people don't know it, I ensure that everyone around me knows exactly the same thing. That's how we grow. Small habits, small actions. You don't have to stand on a big stage to make the impact. But just overall with, the show and everything of that sort, it's just been a journey of me becoming better. It's not enough for you to be good. It's not enough to know how to do your job every day. There's a part or a time in your career where you have a responsibility to others, right?
To be better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not only to yourself. We always try and define leadership as this thing that's centered around a particular person, being able to influence, being able to guide, being able to provide direction and or vision. We don't look at it as, a responsibility to do better or to leave the industry in a better position than you found it. Genuinely for people, take consideration the skills gap, take into consideration, people retiring, you have to make it a conscientious effort to lead and improve and or develop others around you.
Yeah.
It's not enough for you to exist and do well. You genuinely have to make an effort. And that's just to implore anyone who's in the industry, who's in a position of influence, to say, please take someone by the hand day to day, train them, develop them, educate them. And in that way, without having to worry about writing the next biggest business will write itself.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, I couldn't say it better myself. Mandi, Asiya, thank you so much for joining me.
Okay.
Thank you.
And this was really an incredible conversation. I really do appreciate
it's
your
wonderful.
time.
And you're doing
good.
a wonderful thing here, Jason. So I
Okay,
applaud
so you can
on
cut that out. Next episode. Okay, cool. Thank you, guys.
Beautiful stuff.
Thank you.
All
No,
good.
that's fine. That must be in there. There was a joke about cutting it out.
All good.